I'm Sherilyn McElroy, and this is Romantic Romps. Welcome, everyone, to another audible podcast of Romantic Romps, where guests share their stories of love and how it changed their lives. Welcome to another podcast with my guest, Riley O'Keefe, who has been gracious enough to share her memoir spanning the 5-year period of 1957 through 1961. She has already read her prologue to her manuscript, that she lovingly entitled The Life of Riley, after which she asked me to continue the readings from chapter 1 to the end. I've read 2 chapters now and shall continue with the 3rd in the next podcast. So, good morning, Riley. I am very glad to see you on such a beautiful day as today.
Good morning, Sherilyn. It's nice to be with you again. And yes, it is pretty outside. I woke up this morning to a gentle breeze whispering through my window, just enough to make my sheer curtains do a sensual ballet as the cool air caressed my face. I appreciated Mother Nature's effort to awaken me in such a soft manner.
Oh, my goodness, what a lovely description. The piercing noise of a bedside alarm clock woke me up today. My ears are still ringing from it. I really must turn the volume down.
Or open your window.
Yes, or do that, Riley. As I thought about this interview last night, I came up with a topic I think would be of great interest to my listeners. So before I get into chapter 3 of your manuscript, I'd like to ask you how you remembered so many events in that 5-year period. That was quite a long time ago.
I had help.
What kind of help?
Well, my method was a little strange in that over those 5 years, I wrote my feelings or specific circumstances on a piece of paper or whatever I found to write on at the moment. My intent was to put them all together one day, but it took almost 60 years to get the job done.
Did you keep these notations in one particular place in your house?
Well, that would have been too easy, Sherilyn. No, they were scattered all over the place.
Well, if that was the case, how did you find them? Did you specifically look for them?
Actually, I had totally forgotten about writing them all those years ago. They showed up when I started preparing for the move to Golden Spires. With the final decision in making this drastic change behind me, I began the preliminary process of separating my belongings into categories. You know, items to keep, items to donate, and those to throw away, which is very hard for an old woman like me to do. Throwing away things is not how I want to do things. I like to keep everything, That's just the way we old people are. Well, anyway, it was during that daunting and time-consuming process when I surprisingly rediscovered numerous bits of information recounting events of my youth. They were tucked here and there around my home. Look, let me give you an example. One day, while packing my vast collection of reading material, I discovered a bookmark in one of the valued historical romance novels. However, It wasn't an ordinary bookmark. No, it was a jagged piece of paper with writing scribbled on both sides. After reading the contents and giggling at how silly I seemed and the slang I used back then, I tossed the note away. Then I found another of the same kind of bookmark and still another until I had a whole slew of them.
Well, did all those that you found, did that cover the 5-year span?
Oh, goodness gracious, no! That was just the beginning. There were other places throughout my home where I didn't remember placing jotted memories, like in my bedroom closet. I was inspecting my underwear to discard any, blemished, so to speak, pieces of lingerie when I discovered 6 typed pages of writing that lined the bottom of the shelf. I must have run out of rose-scented lining paper and had chosen these as a substitute. I miss my rose-scented paper that I put on my shelves. It smelled so good. It smelled like roses, you know. I guess that's why they called it rose-scented lining paper. Interesting. But anyway, another place in the bedroom where I unearthed notes was in the cedar chest at the foot of my bed. It's the same cedar chest you saw when you were at my apartment the other day. Do you remember that? Do you remember that cedar chest? Oh, well, anyway, while rummaging through the garments in that chest, I came across some seasonal sweaters, trying to determine which Christmas one was going to make a person very happy when they bought it at a thrift store and wore it to a most beautiful Christmas sweater contest. Is when I discovered comments on parchment paper stuck between each folded piece of clothing. Now, don't ask me why parchment paper. I hear that little squirrel thinking in your brain. I don't know why I chose parchment paper. I have no idea. But now, the strangest place to have found a reference to my past was, wait for it, in my kitchen. Sitting next to my double oven was an antique writing desk.
You wrote in your kitchen, Riley?
Not really. I put that desk there because it brought a shabby chic charm to the otherwise sterile surroundings of upgraded appliances and the marble countertops. Very, very modern stuff. There was no character to my kitchen. The desk's whitewashed finish and rustic copper handles on its cabinet doors added that pizzazz to the room. It was also useful. Don't think that it wasn't. It was. Not only did it house those items having nowhere else to go, and you know I'm referring to junk, right? Right?
Yes, Riley, I kind of gathered that.
Well, you gathered correctly, Sherilyn. Now, it also had a lower cabinet that housed a few of my longtime companions, friends like Jim, Jack, and Jose, otherwise known as bottles of Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, and Jose Cuervo. You've heard of them, haven't you?
Yes, Riley, I'm aware of those 3. Yes, I am.
Good. Though recently, wine is my preference. I kept the liquor for guests or when my palate for alcohol changed again, which happens from time to time, you know. Well, when unveiling these aged, like me, liquor bottles, I carefully removed my friend Jim to eliminate the 20 years of accumulated dust. I hate dust. Out of sight, out of mind. And I must have been out of my mind to think there was no dust on Jim. There was. And that's when I found a Yahtzee scoring sheet stuck to the glass bottom of the bottle. A little at a time, I carefully pulled the corners of the paper to detach it from the bottle's bottom. In turning the sheet over, I laughed at more handwriting scrawled all over the silly thing. I wish I could remember when I wrote that. And the game, Yahtzee's a fun game, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway, it was amusing to find comments of yesteryear on material like torn pieces of paper, the aforementioned game scoring sheets, napkins, and get this, even a section of 6 attached squares of toilet paper. Yeah, toilet paper. Unused. Each of these items held a brief story about something that happened in my youth. And after reading many of them, I just threw them away. But then it dawned on me that I should save and arrange these logs to create a diary. With that idea, the tedious work of getting ready to move became more of a game than a chore. I like games. I told you I play Rumacube, right?
Yes, Riley, you told us that.
Okay, good. Rumacube is a fun game. I always win it. Oh, wait, never mind. Let's get on with it. Instead of just gathering an armful of items, I meticulously went through them to see if there was another surprise waiting for me. When I discovered one, I placed it in a cardboard box along with other notes revealing themselves to me while I continued to sort through my possessions.
That sounds like the notes were all jumbled together, though, right? All mixed up and meshed together in a cardboard box?
Yes, they were. But I read through and arranged them in the order the described event occurred. It took some time to do that, Sherlyn. I have to admit that, but I did it. I took each piece of paper and I read it. And then I had to piece them like a jigsaw puzzle to where they belonged. You know, there's a lot of cobwebs up here in this old noggin, but there's a lot of spiders up there, too, that kind of weave things together.
Whew, that sounds like a monumental task, Riley. It must have taken a while to do.
Oh, it most certainly did when placing that final note from a past paramour. You know what that is, a paramour. That's a lover. Never mind. Anyway, I literally wilted into the wingback chair I inherited from my mother. You know, the chairs you saw with the bright pink owls printed on the material?
Oh, yes, Riley, how could I not remember those? They were quite loud and whimsical.
Well, they belonged to my mother, who cherished them, so when she passed, I had to keep the pair. It makes me smile when thinking about her sitting in one of them and reading a book so many years ago.
Oh, that's a beautiful memory, Riley.
Yeah, well, my mom, she was a beautiful lady. But after going through all that trouble, I gave my body a rest for 3 days, then returned to the giant diary and began reading each testimony in its proper order. I took my time to revel in the humor, if that's what the note brought, or the tragedy that recreated the sadness and heaviness in my heart as if the event happened yesterday. There were a lot of those, but a lot of happy memories too. We'll focus on those. Well, it took days to read through them all. I didn't want to hurry. I didn't need to hurry. The assisted living facility wasn't going anywhere, and it seemed neither was I very fast. Each recorded incident deserved the same respect I gave it in years past, and each received it. And now you know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. You do know who Paul Harvey is, don't you?
Of course. He was a radio broadcaster in the 1970s, and he told stories about interesting facts on a variety of subjects. He always left a key element, though, until the very end, and that's when he said his famous tagline of, "And now you know the rest of the story."
Good girl. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Riley.
So, what else do you want to know, Sherilyn?
I think that's all I have time for, Riley, but I want to thank you for sharing that piece of your past with us.
You're welcome, dear. Will you be reading my next chapter now?
Indeed I shall. Chapter 3, coming up. I'd like to thank Riley and my listeners for joining me today, and I hope you all return for the next episode of Romantic Romps with our featured guest, Riley O'Keefe. Until next time, ta for now.